Yo, Dodgers, what's up with you guys? How can you never find ways to win? It's so confusing. You guys just lose every single time in the freaking playoffs. You've been since 2013. Everyone and their mother is wondering how you cannot win a World Series. It's just doesn't make any sense to us fans. You always find a way to underperform in the postseason. So, I'm going to take a recap from 2013 all the way to the most recent playoffs in 2019 of what happened. And then at the end, I'll recap of how I think this team is just so unfortunate. So, let's kick this off and go back to 2013, where they finished 92-70. First place in the NL West with a decent bullpen, a pretty good lineup, and a damn good top three, with all of them having a 3 ERA or lower. And Clayton Kershaw, went off in the regular season with a 1.83 ERA, which is absolutely amazing. But, of course, they were dealing with injuries to stars Andre Ethier and Matt Kemp. And Kemp kept him out. Plus, they made it to the NLCS after beating the Braves in the divisional round in 4 games. But this is kind of where we started seeing Kershaw postseason struggles start to begin. And he choked in Game 6, and he gave the Cardinals 7 runs in 4 innings, which would eliminate the Dodgers. And eventually, the Cardinals in that game would go on to lose the World Series to Boston in 6 games. Which takes us to 2014. And the team did not change much from 2013 to 2014, quite honestly. So, really, all they did was get more experience pitching. Maybe wasn't as great, though, as last year. But they finished with a better record, with 94 wins and 68 losses, while again finishing in first place for that NL West. With Kershaw, of course, winning the MVP this year. But once again, the playoff struggles happened in Game 1. He looked great through 6, but then fell apart in the 7th to give the Cardinals the game. In Game 4 again, a winner-go-home game for the Dodgers. He wasn't terrible. Well, once again, in the 7th inning, he gave the Cardinals the lead, where the Cardinals went on to beat them, and then went on to lose in 5 games to the future 2014 World Series champions, the San Francisco Giants. And then we move on to 2015. And this is really where we saw the Dodgers roster change more, as the Dodgers started getting some younger players take place for the older ones, and really the team wasn't as great as they were before. But they still finished first in the National League West with a 92-70 record. And once again, in the playoffs, Kershaw struggled in Game 1. He looked good once again in his not so lucky 7th inning. For once, the number 7 wasn't lucky to someone. But he just loaded up the bases, which would give the Mets what they needed, and the Dodgers would go on to lose Game 1. But finally, in Game 4, Kershaw had a good game and won it for the Dodgers. But fire-hot Daniel Murphy in 2015 playoffs wasn't letting anyone beat his team, as he went on to carry the Mets to a Game 5 victory, and would eventually carry the New York Mets to the World Series after sweeping the Cubs in LCS, but would only win 1 game in the World Series, losing to the Royals in 2015. Now that's hard to imagine. It's kind of hysterical that the Royals were actually a 2015 World Series champs still. And that year, in 2015, for the Dodgers, Zach Greinke ended up finishing 2nd in the NL Cy Young Award. But this big hit on the Dodgers, as Zach Greinke, your star pitcher, would leave you guys and go to the Diamondbacks. So in 2016, the only star pitcher on the Dodgers to begin the year was Clayton Kershaw. But this is where you start seeing the relief pitchers for the Dodgers start getting better. And that was kind of their strong suit more than the starters. as 2016 wasn't really the best year for the Dodgers, as it was the worst record for a while with a 91-71 record. But still, they finished first in the National League West, and Kershaw, again, would struggle in Game 1. But luckily, he got pulled in the 5th inning this time, and the bullpen was better, so the Dodgers ended up winning Game 1 still. But once again, in Game 4, Kershaw would choke it in the 7th inning after doing well through 6, and apparently the Dodgers have not learned that yet. But luckily, Chase Utley came in clutch and won that game for the Dodgers, as it would take him to Game 5, where Kershaw would actually close the game and get the save to take him to the NLCS to face off against the Chicago Cubs. Where in Game 1, Cubs would take it after Dodgers pitching struggled. And then in Game 2, Kershaw pitched a gem, and they gave the Dodgers the win once again. And then in Game 3, the Cubs would get shut out, and the Dodgers ended up going 2-1 in series. And then in Game 4, the Cubs broke out against Julio Urias, the youngest pitcher to ever start in a playoff game, and the Cubs would tie the series up 2-2. Then in Game 5, Cubs would control the game and go up 3-2. Where in Game 6, Dodgers evened the series back up. So once again, Game 7, Kershaw struggled and allowed 5 runs. And that's the only 5 runs the Cubs would score that game. But it was enough to take the Cubs to the World Series, where they came back from a 3-1 lead, blown a 3-1 lead by Cleveland, and win the World Series in 2016. Like my post up there says that. But that brings us to 2017, where the Dodgers would go off and end up with the top seed in the National League with 104 wins and only 58 losses. As they went out and got Yu Darvish at the trade deadline, and their starters were doing pretty well, with Alex Wood stepping up with only having 2.72 ERA. Also, their relievers took a big step forward this year. And the hitting got better with rookie sensations Cody Bellinger and Corey Seager having fantastic years for rookies. And, of course, this was a year for Justin Turner, who had a .322 batting average. And when playoff came around, they faced the Diamondbacks, where Kershaw started out in Game 1, gave up 4 runs, all on solo shots, and became the first pitcher in the National League to ever do so in a playoff game, but still the Dodgers would win Game 1. They would also go on to win Game 2 and finish the sweep in Game 3, where they would go on to face the Chicago Cubs once again in the NLCS. The big worry, though, for this Dodger team was Corey Seager suffered an injury and would be out for the series as he was left off the roster for it. But surprisingly, in Game 1, Kershaw came out and pitched pretty well, only allowing 2 runs and allowed the Dodgers to win Game 1. Then on to Game 2, where the game was only 1-1 until Justin Turner, a damn hero for the Dodgers so far in the postseason, as he would go off, hit a 3-1 walk-off home run, which was the first ever walk-off home run in the postseason for the Dodgers since the 1988 World Series. So the Dodgers had a 2-0 series lead heading into Chicago, where they would take care of business once again and win Game 3. The bullpen was being lights out for the Dodgers. But, of course, the Cubs ended up winning Game 4 to stay alive, which didn't matter much, as the Dodgers would crush the Cubs in Game 5 to move on to the World Series, as the Dodgers bullpen set a record with 23 consecutive scoreless innings in the postseason, which is just phenomenal. And, of course, the World Series, though, for the Dodgers was the Astros. And what a World Series this would be for the fans, as the Dodgers ended up, as in Game 1 of the World Series, Clayton Kershaw was pitching in the game, and he pitched an absolute gem. While in Game 2, we had the two teams, the Dodgers and the Astros, combined for 8 home runs together. And between the two teams, that's a record for a single World Series game. And it ended up being an Astros win, which tied the series up at 1-1. But that was the Astros' first ever World Series win in the whole team's career. But in Game 3, we would see the Astros pick up the dub, but eventually they would lose in Game 4, so the series went back to 2-2. And when it went to Game 5, once again it was Clayton Kershaw's time, but this time he was off, as he allowed 6 runs in only 4 2/3 innings of work, and this game would be groundbreaking. But the Astros would eventually pull off the win 13-12, which is one of the most runs scored, 25, in a World Series game. Then we went to Game 6, which turned out to be a win or go home for the Dodgers, and they ended up winning the game to send it to Game 7, where the Dodgers could only muster up 1 run, even though Kershaw pitched a gem in relief of 4 innings, allowing no runs. But the Astros ended up winning the World Series, and the Dodgers would end up losing Yu Darvish that offseason, which would take us to 2018, where even though they lost a guy, they always find a way to get another guy, this time in Manny Machado. But really, the Dodgers pitching didn't take much of the hit, as young and Walker Buehler would become a name to know very quickly. But of course, injuries would hurt this team, and it honestly made them finish with a 92-71 record, as from the beginning of the year, young sensational shortstop Corey Seager went down. But then we go on to the playoffs, where they would face the Braves. And for the first time in the 6 previous playoff openers, Clayton Kershaw did not start Game 1. But that didn't matter, as they ended up winning Game 1 anyways. And then Kershaw pitched an absolute gem in Game 2 with 8 scoreless innings, so they went up 2-0. And then Walker Buehler would struggle in his first playoff start in Game 3, giving up 5 runs in the second inning, but luckily his team got his back and ended up winning and going to the NLCS for the 3rd year in a row. This time they would face the Brewers and the sensational Christian Yelich, who take baseball world by storm. And Kershaw was stuck in for Game 1, allowing 5 runs, and had the shortest start of his postseason career, which quite honestly made the Dodgers lose Game 1. But they would pull back in Game 2, thanks to once again Justin Turner. Then it went on to Game 3, where the Dodgers couldn't score, so they would lose the lead once again. But in Game 4, it would go into 13 innings, where the Dodgers would end up evening out the series. And then Kershaw had an amazing game, as he pitched 7 innings, while only allowing 1 run, and the Dodgers would take the lead in the series 3-2. But they didn't have the lead in the series for long, as the Brewers would win Game 6. But the Dodgers would find their way back to the World Series, this time to face the Boston Red Sox after winning Game 7. And let's just say, the World Series was not pretty for the Dodgers in 2018, as Boston kind of proved they were the number 1 team. And in Game 1, Kershaw would lose the game, allowing once again 5 runs in his starts. And the Dodgers would also go on to lose Game 2. But in Game 3, Walker Buehler would pitch an absolute gem 7-inning shutout, which will help the Dodgers win. But sadly, the Red Sox would once again win Game 4, set the Dodgers up for a do or die in Game 5, which the Dodgers died in, with Kershaw not pitching well, allowing 4 runs in 7 innings, and they would lose the World Series once again, this time to the Boston Red Sox. Which brings us to 2019, where the hitting got much better, and Cody Bellinger would put up MVP numbers, while also having 4 pitchers with a 3 ERA or lower. And believe it or not, the worst pitcher, number 4 pitcher, the one with the highest ERA, was Clayton Kershaw, with exactly 3 ERA. So once again, the Dodgers were expected to just make the World Series, as no one thought the National League was really competitive. And they were going to have a 3-peat, but everyone thought they would lose. But as you guys know, it was much, much worse, honestly, for them, as the Dodgers ended up with a 106-56 record, their best during this time span, but they had to play the Nationals in their divisional round. And they would take care of business in Game 1, allowing no runs. Then on to Game 2, where Clayton Kershaw allowed 3 runs in 6 innings, which was pretty good, honestly, in my opinion. but the Nationals would even up the series. But once again, the Dodgers take it back in Game 3, only to lose in Game 4. But this takes us to Game 5, where the Dodgers had Game 1 going into the 8th inning, only to put Kershaw into pitch, who not only let up one solo home run, but another one next pitch, which would lead the Dodgers to lose the series in extras. This loss, you have to put on the manager. I am sorry, but this loss is so much on the manager. After Kershaw gave up that first home run, he should have gotten taken out. I will say that once again and again. It's a do or die situation. You are trying to win. You want to go back to that World Series. You want to prove you can win the World Series. And the pitcher just gave up a solo home run in the 8th inning. Pull him. That's the smart thing to do, not keep him in. So, what is wrong with this Dodgers team? And why can't they just win the World Series? Well, you see, I think they just hit the wrong time to strike gold, honestly. As their team is probably it's super good. Their team's phenomenal. It's just they hit the wrong time. The Astros are a super team now. The Red Sox are a super team. The Yankees are a super team. Sure, they don't have much competition in the National League, but that American League's just set up. And they can't even beat the Washington Nationals. Just put some good pitchers against these guys, and they can't do anything. Plus, the manager is just, that manager might as well get fired. I don't think he's making the right decisions to help them win the World Series. In my personal opinion, I really don't think he is. He has some very highly questionable management calls here and there. Especially in a game where all the marbles are on the table. Kershaw should have been pulled after that first home run. And you can blame Kershaw some, but pitching is hard. And all pitchers have bad games. Plus, it's postseason. Teams usually hit a lot better in the postseason, and the teams are usually a lot better hitting teams in the postseason, because you aren't playing your little scrappy teams that will give you a better ERA. But anyways, what do you guys think is the problem with the Dodgers? Leave it down in the comments below. Also, what other sports topics would you like to hear me talk about? Leave a suggestion down in the comments below for that, and who knows, your suggestion may just be in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Of course, make sure to keep the sports weave flowing throughout the day.